Good afternoon all, myself Sunita Zadav. Today I am going to present a paper on optimization of electrical grid for power theft detection using IoT. So basically this is the bureau of presentation. First we will see what are the objectives of this proposed system, then introduction, literature review, what was the gap in previous literatures or the papers, what contribution made by me, methodology which is choose for this system, then the results, and finally the conclusion. First of all, we will see the objectives. As we all know, the in India, the most electrical power grid is of open network type. Um, uh, so the losses open network type, so it becomes very difficult to finding out the theft, especially by hooking in the rural areas, particularly for distribution system. So this proposed system is narrow down the area to identify the theft location. As proposed system is IoT based, so the continuous power consumption is monitored at the central unit. Ultimately, theft detection time and the human interfaces is reduces, and the power losses is minimizes. We also implemented a system to disconnect the theft area from the central unit at a single click. In India, the current scenario is that in distribution, particularly in distribution system, the aggregated and technical commercial losses in India is around 22.73% as per the paper from Prashant Chaudhary. So to minimize the losses, it's essential to reduce the thefts in the distribution system. So the methodology used in this proposed system is based on the IoT, and it has divided into three parts of smart meter, pole unit, and distribution unit. The smart meter is installed or implant at the consumer end. The pole unit is a major unit at a pole, that is from where consumer is going to be is supplied, and distribution unit is nothing but a distribution transformer unit, where all these electrical parameters or the power consumption is going to be measured. This is the some literature review on the theft, electricity theft topic. Mr. Prashant Chaudhary and Jitendra Nath Mehra has designed SMS-based system for calculating the voltage drop. Basically, this is the this method is or this system was based on a voltage drop, where the sending end voltage and the receiving end voltage, means consumer end voltage, is compared with the sending end voltage, and the comparison shows the losses. And also MJ Jeffin has designed IoT based smart meter. In this case, the meter is send the consume power to the central unit. The meter has a CTPT unit, so any theft in the meter will be detected from the central unit. But from this literature, it is observed that the exact location of the theft, especially for hooking purpose, is not detected. So in our system, this is the most important challenge to finding out the exact location of the power theft. So for this purpose, we have two methods. First one is voltage drop, and another one is the total power consumption method. So we going through the total power consumption method, where in this proposed system, smart electrical meter is at consumer end are used to measure the consumed power. These models will send the values of consumed power to the central unit, and hence to reduce the size of area of the theft. So we use another unit at the pole. Also, third unit is a distribution system. So this power consumption at the three units will get compared, and ultimately we can finding out the location. This system is we use a IoT instead of GSM or the wireless technology. So what methodology is used? So in this system, we are going to form three subsections. That is one measuring unit at a smart meter, another one is at distribution transformer unit, and third one is at pole unit. So basically these three measuring unit will measure the powers or the currents or the voltages at that point, and send this consumed data to the central room via web page using IoT. This is the conceptual structure for the this proposed IoT-based system, where a simple distribution point and two-pole network is considered. Where distribution point is nothing but a distribution transformer. At pole 1 and at pole 1, pole 2, both the currents, outgoing currents and incoming currents are get measured. Also at a consumer end, there is a smart meter which will continuously going to measure the current from consumed by the consumer. Also at distribution unit, there is a sending current will be get measured. So when we consider about for pole one, the current equation is IP1 is equal to I1A plus I1B plus IP2. This is the ideal condition equations. Whenever there is no theft, these equations are formed. But what happens whenever there is a theft, an additional current of ITH quantity gets flow from the system. So basically this equation get wrong or false, and this equation get false, and this will detected from the central unit where exactly the theft is there. So at pole 1 or this at consumer end, there is a disconnection unit also there. So from the central unit, we can disconnect this supply from this pole 1 or the at consumer end. This is a block diagram for the measuring units which are used at pole or the consumer end. So the current sensor and other electrical parameter sensors are there. Switching devices is used to disconnect the supply. ESP8266 microcontroller board is there. For IoT, ThinkFace web is used. Similarly, for smart meter, and additional LCD is there to display the readings. Similarly, this unit is of distribution unit. Conclusion. Finding the location of energy theft in detection will become easy since area is divided into smaller sections. As this system is IoT based, so connectivity and scalability will be increased since IoT is possible to increase the number of nodes and amount of data. So real-time monitoring also is there. These are some references. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a very nice presentation.
Thank you,
I request you to please post your email ID in the chat box so that the participant could interact and ask the queries to you directly. And
Okay.
I request other participants to kindly post your queries in the chat box. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Yes.
Good afternoon, dear professors. My name is Xu Wenjing. I come from Southeast University. I'm going to report on my research entitled as multifunctional nano platform based on COT Sunitive for synthetic phototherapy and molecular targeted therapy of orbital carcinoma. Liver cancer seriously threatens human health. China is a large country of liver cancer, accounts for about 50% of global incidence rate and mortality. Hepatocellular carcinoma is the most common form of liver cancer, accounts for about 80% of primary liver. In recent report, Sunitini rather than Shrapney abolished tumor-induced profound immune tolerance to ignited immunology anti-tumor immune response while significantly suppressing Treg production and PD-1 expression. Additionally, compared to sorafenib, sunitinib has a pattern overlap, but significantly distinct target inhibition suppressor. Our team used amphibic poly to prepare a novel nanoparticles by self-assemble method with synergetic anti-vascular activity and PDT and PTT. Sunitinib can induce the apoptosis of vascular endothelial cells for inhibiting tumor antigens. And the SEM and the TM showed that the prepared nanoparticles was uniform spherically molar feature with a diameter around 58 and the data potential was 5893. SAF, the particular displayed two obverse of suppression peaks at 40, 11 and 68.8. A slight red rift could be observed compared to free CLU-PG 2000 FA, which proved the successful loading of drugs. Furthermore, the clear fluorescence peak and fluorescence photos of various concentration indicated the potential fluorescence image application of SCF nanoparticles. The intraocular uptake behaviors of nanoparticles was observed by confocal fluorescence microscope. CLU could be utilized as a fluorescence probe to observe the cellular uptake of nanoparticles. The green fluorescence of CLU could be found in the cytoplasm of hepatocellular carcinoma cell as by confocal fluorescence microscope, indicating nanoparticles can be smoothly endocytosed by tumor cells. The result of CCK1 indicated that the nanoparticles exists a strong phototoxicity with and other assay 58 values of nanoparticles with or without layer erasing are 7H and ppm and 4.3 ppm for HEP3B cells. The homolysis experience was performed to assess the biocompatibility of nanoparticles. The human rate was less than 8% even at a concentration of 100 ppm. Then after intravenous injection of nanoparticles, the fluorescence signal at the tumor site gradually increased, reached a maximum after about 6 hours, and then gradually decreased. The real-time photo at tumor site can be obviously evaluated by infrared camera. In award, the multi-modal image of nanoparticles provide effective diagnosis and precise navigation. The valid anti-tumor effect of nanoparticles in vivo tumor values were recorded every 2 days during 48 days treatment, as shown in figure. To measure the toxicity of nanoparticles on major organs after the appearance result shows no obvious damage, which indicating the prepared nanoparticles have no obvious toxicity. Conclusion, in summary, we prepared a multi-function nanoplatforms by using a novel precision polymer to deliver the kind of multi-target tolerance key inhibitor. The SAF nanoparticles demonstrate superior therapy effect based on PDT-PTT, a molecular targeted therapy. Meanwhile, the nanoparticles also show the excellent photo and fluorescence image capability. The novel suited build the nanoplatform for multi-modal therapy offers a promising target for the treatment of HCC. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. That was a wonderful, interesting presentation.
Genduz Ilyas. I am a PhD student at University of Guelma, Algeria. The topic of my presentation is the static analysis of FGM BMC using a refined 1D beam theory. This theory built on 3D synthesis solution, and in this beam theory, the displacement model include Poisson's effects out of plane deformations and distortions. In this work, the refined beam theory was introduced by a tool called CSB cross-section and beam analysis. CSB is proposed as two complementary numerical tools called C-section and C-beam. First, C-section calculates the mechanical characteristics of the cross-section and a set of distortion modes by 2D finite element method. Then C-beam uses these mechanical characteristics of the cross-section to calculate the beam by 1D finite element method. Also, we have the commercial code Abacus is used to perform the 3D finite element method using the 15 nodes quadratic triangular prism. In order to verify the current theory, we have an example of Bendian analysis. We study a simply supported FGM beam subjected to a uniformly distributed load, and the mechanical properties of this beam change through the thickness according to parallel and exponential distribution. The comparison results obtained in terms of no-dimensional deflection distribution is between our model refined beam theory and no-dimensional deflection with high-order shear deformation by CMSIC show that the present results are in excellent agreement with high-order shear deformation theory. It can also be seen that the deflection of all metal is greater than for ceramic. This can be explained by the fact that Young's modulus of ceramic is higher than that of metal, and the no-dimensional deflection of FGM beam when P 0.5, 1, and 5 is between the metal and ceramic beam. For the FGM beam, the no-dimensional transverse deflection decreases as the power law exponent increases. This is due to the fact that increase in the power law exponent leads to a decreases in the bending stiffness of the beam. Next, we have an example for bending torsional analysis. A thin wall, not symmetric, homogeneous profile subjected to distributed load and with boundary condition clamped assembly supported is started. The results of cross-section deformation shown in figure 6. The deformation mode in red color indicate the Poisson's effect related to the axial force N and bending moment Mx My, while the deformation in blue color indicates the out of plane deformation related to the shear forces and the shear forces Px, Ty, and torsional moment. In addition, certain additional sectional distortion are considered 10 in plane and 5 out of plane. All these deformation of cross-section reflect the mechanical behavior of the cross-section lead to a beam theory that actually corresponds the cross-section types in terms of shape and materials. Next, we have a comparison between our model. Here we have a refined beam theory using the distortional modes, short RPT starter. Figure 7 presented the stress distribution fields for axial stress and shear stress. Near to the two supports, clamped and assembly supported. The results obtained near the edges indicate a good agreement between our model refined beam theory and the refined beam theory using the distortional modes in terms of axial stress and shear stress, and those obtained by 3D finite element method in terms of numerical results and sectional deformation, especially between a refined beam theory using the distortional mode and the 3D finite element method. For example, here we have equal value and the 3D deformation between our model and 3D finite element method. And here we have a certain differences can be observed in the location designated by the circles. As a conclusion, a refined beam theory aims to satisfy the support conditions and better explain the edge effects. In addition, finding the 3D Saint-Venant solution away from the edges. Because the displacement model contains the displacement shape of the Saint-Venant solution. Also, the refined beam model that treats any section in terms of shape and material and take into account all kinds of deformation of cross-section, where beam Poisson's effect and deformation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was a wonderful presentation.
Everyone, good afternoon. I'm Sonia Nopameswari. present about my research about existence of Al Munawar Arab Village as a tourism destination in Palembang post-COVID-19. Okay, first introduction to the closure of this sector. All countries suffered losses, including Indonesia. One of them is that tourism in Indonesia has also suffered losses due to the COVID-19 outbreak, especially in the city of Palembang. Palembang is one of city in Indonesia. Not only tourism in Indonesia has suffered losses due to the COVID-19 outbreak, but also tourism in the city of Palembang in particular has also suffered losses. Due to sudden outbreak that endangered all tourism destination in Palembang city, they had to close, especially Al Munawar Arab Village tourist destination. The existence of Al Munawar Arab Village is due to the remains of old buildings from the era of Palembang, Darussalam Sultanate, where these buildings were the first reside once inhabited by Arabs when they migrated to the Palembang city. The people of this Arab village also have their values, norms, and rules, which are following Islamic law. The focus in this research is to find out how the existence of Al Munawar Arab Village as a tourist destination in Palembang City post-COVID-19. Tourist destination is the main components in the tourism according to John Paul are accessibility, accommodation, and attraction. And another opinion, what is tourism destination from Ramesh is the most important components of tourism are accommodation, accessibility, facilities, attraction, and activities. The tourism industry is something that is given to tourists, such as products and services provided by tourism destination or services that tourists expect when visiting the tourist destination itself. Existence of the Arab Al Munawar Village. Al Munawar Arab Village is a village founded by Habib Abdurrahman Al Munawar, who came from Hadramaut, South Yemen, around the 18th century. This Arab village still exists in Palembang because of the descendants of Habib Abdurrahman Al Munawar, who were allowed to settle in Palembang city to conduct trade and spread Islamic teachings, to build their settlement, which still exists today and has been occupied by his descendants. And tourists can do interesting activities in this village, namely photos, hunting with interesting backgrounds around the village, studying about Arabic culture and Islamic values, and tourists can enjoy the typical culinary delights of the Al Munawar Arab Village. Okay, the theory of this article is functional structure theory by Talcott Parson. There is 4 SAMs, that is adaptation, goal attainment, integration, and latency. First, adaptation is a system that overcomes the urgent need to deal with external situations by adapting to its environment with its needs. Goal attainment is a system that defines and achieves its goals. Integration, a system must manage interrelationships with other system A, G, and L. The last, latency, is a system that must provide, maintain, and update both the motivation, the individuals, and the cultural patterns that support that motivation. Research methods in this study about is a descriptive qualitative approach by seeking data through interviews, documentation, and literature studies. The interviews, I have interviewed Mr. Ubaidillah bin Abdullah Al-Khirid, that he is a key informant for this research. Apart from interview, I also conducted documentation at the research location to describe the condition of Arab village directly as a tourist destination after COVID-19. Another way I collect the data by collecting data through literature studies from trusted sources such as the mass media and the internet. Okay, the result and discussion about the studies I see from the theory for Shames talked person is first adaptation. First, after the COVID-19 case slump, the Arab village is slowly reopened its destination because the COVID, but the Arab village, which previously received an injection of funds by the tourism office, has now been stopped due to COVID-19. So to maintain the existence of Arab Al-Munawar as a tourism destination village, work together to raise funds, and the funds they collect are used for the development of the Arab village so that they continue to provide good facilities and accessibility to tourists who come. Second, goal attainment. The goal to be achieved by the village is to introduce the story of their village because Al-Munawar Arab village is different from other Arab villages in Palembang city. The attraction that belong is Al-Munawar Arab village is the buildings of the houses erected by Habib Abdurrahman Al-Munawar, the first founder of this Arab village. That you can see every picture in my slides, there is a buildings that erected by Habib Abdurrahman for the first time. And the houses are 30 years old and are still strong until today and have survived to this day because these houses are made of wood imported directly from Europe, American, and etc. Okay. Third, since integration, so since COVID-19 hit, Al-Munawar Arab village had to close its destination and the funds channeled from the tourism office stopped because the entire tourism sector in Palembang city also suffered losses. Now Al-Munawar village has reopened its destination but no longer for public visits. So the management only allows outsiders to do research and those who want to know about the history and also the culture of the Al-Munawar Arab village. And the last latency seen from the Arab village of Al-Munawar, which has its own culture, values, and norms following Islamic law, it still applies rules in its village, which must be followed by visiting tourists. Even so, there are still tourists who do not follow these rules. When notified by the tour manager, tourists feel unhappy and still want to do what they like. So that is why Arab Al-Munawar village closed before COVID-19 and after COVID-19 they closed their destination because COVID. Okay, the conclusion, Al-Munawar Arab village is still exists today, but it's no longer open for general tourist visits and only certain people can enter the village, such as researchers and special appointments can visit Al-Munawar Arab village. Okay, thank you for my presentation today and good afternoon.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a wonderful presentation. So I'll call upon the next presenter.
To all of you, ma'am. All of you. I am presenting my paper, Challenges Faced by the Farmers with respect to adopting high-density apple cultivation, a study on district Baramulla in Badgaum, presented by me, Imtiaz Majid, and Dr. Tawhid Nabi, who is not present here, but he is with me. And we are affiliated with the Mithil School of Business, Lovely Professional University. And here are the contents of this paper or abstract: introduction, review of literature, area of study, objectives, research methodology and data collection, suggestion, conclusion, and reference. Apple sector In abstract, apple sector is the main source of livelihood to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. More than 70% of apple production comes from the Jammu and Kashmir. The average productivity of fruit is low, 10 metric tons in India, as compared to other countries, 6 to 70 metric tons. High-density variety helps the fruit growers to achieve productivity, but it needs a lot of investment in the beginning, which is a very challenging for the farmers, state government as well as central government. The paper explains the challenge of ultra-high-density apple growers and their possible solutions. Pilot survey of 14 crores of ultra-high-density apple in district Baramulla and Badgaon was done in 2022-23. This paper also analyzed the challenge faced by the ultra-high-density apple growers with Henry gate tracking method was used. In introduction, the study has found that in Jammu and Kashmir, high-density scheme was launched in 2016. High-density apple productivity has increased as compared to traditional apple varieties. The high-density was introduced by the world to increase productivity and improve the quality of fruits. The main factor that influences the quantity and quality of the high-density apple is the rootstock. Sometimes the man distributor sells fake rootstocks on the name of the high-density, and after 2 to 3 years later, the farmer realized that the distributor has cheated him. After China and US, Turkey ranks third with 69,41,000 metric tons apple production per year in Turkey. Sparta ranks first with 6,34,795 metric tons per year. The main problem of Turkey is the weed that affects the quality and quantity of the high-density apple. There is need to support farmers, particularly small farmers who do not have enough money and reach to adopt loan schemes of the government. Government should establish a mechanism whereby financing agencies and banks should be provided target of providing at least 25% of their loan allocation to the apple growers for the execution of ultra-high-density scheme. Here's the literature review. India stands 5th rank in the production of apple in the world. In high-density apple, Super Chef Sandage is an important exotic variety because it is planted 3,906 plants per hectare. With this high rate of planting, profitability rate is very high. In present scenario, apples with high sugar content, refreshing taste, and high fresh juiciness are acceptable. These are all qualities are in high-density apple. The success of high-density planting depends on the proper spacing, rootstock, branch cutting, and tree training system, which is also known as croning. The popular variety of high-density apple is tall sandal, mainly because trees will give fruit in between 2 to 3 years. Training system is important for high-density trees, which branch will give fruit to next year. A good branch cutter or a trainer will know. The ultra-high-density apple orchard increased production not in India but in whole world. The high-density scheme was started in 2015-16 in Jammu and Kashmir. Rootstock was imported for Atlo Addi E3. Old varieties need 10 to 15 years of gestation period. That's why farmers choose high-density apple, which has 2 to 5 years of gestation period. The Jammu and Kashmir government brought high-density apple rootstock imported from Netherlands. Lots of issues have to be addressed, such as establishing laboratories, testing of pesticides, insecticides, and fungicides. Subsidy should be given to the consumers, though direct benefit scheme, so the farmers cannot be exploited by the middleman. M26 is a semi-draft rootstock. With it is helpful for the apple growers of the world. World needs more intensive draft rootstock that replaces M26 rootstock. The ultra-high-density variety M26 helps the farmers to get more productivity, reduce juvenile period, increase flower density, and efficient mechanism management. The daily consumption of apple helps a person to control plasma control level, which is an important risk factor in cardiovascular disease. A trial was conducted in vascular disease patients, which was found that high-density apple is an essential fruit to reduce cholesterol level. The objective is to examine the established cost of ultra high density apple cultivation, which has been the major hurdle in adopting the cultivation in the district of Baramulla and Budgam. The study area, district Baramulla and Budgam, has been the area or field of study for completion of the report. District Baramulla has the largest producer of apple in Jammu and Kashmir with respect to the old varieties of apple. At present, 31 growers are associated with ultra high density apple cultivation in district Baramulla. District Budgam has the largest portion in this regard with 109 high density apple growers. Both primary and secondary data was utilized in process of research. The total number of growers of ultra high density apple in district Baramulla and Budgam is 140. Primary data was collected from 14 growers of ultra high density apple by on-ground analysis and also farming institute by selecting random sampling among the growers of ultra high density apple from all CD blocks of district Baramulla and Budgam. Cases of 14 growers, 3 respondents from district Baramulla and 11 responses from district Budgam of ultra high density apple was studied. Secondary data was collected from the Horticulture Board of Jammu and Kashmir, National Horticulture Board, Chief Horticulture Officer Baramulla, Chief Horticulture Officer Budgam, and Economic Survey of 2019-21 was used. Henry rating method was used to rank the challenge faced by the ultra high density apple growers. It is utilized to find out which challenge faced by the most ultra high density growers. Though Henry ranking technique, Polite study has been responding, ranking different challenges after converting it to score value and rank with the help of the following formula: percentage position 40, R1J minus 0.5 divided by NJ, where RJ rank, RIJ rank given to their 10th variable by jth respondent, NJ number of variable ranked by the jth respondent. With the help of the get ranking table, the percentage estimated is covered into scores for referring to the table given by the get ranking and Woodworth 1969. Here are the challenges. The first challenge is high establishment cost. Second is high interest rate. Third, subsidy not received on regular basis. Fourth, road electricity not available to the common orchards. Fifth is original pesticides not available. National highway remains closed regularly during transportation time of fruit. MSP not available. After surveying, we have found the data. Next, ma'am. Yes. After the survey, and we have found the data that high establishment cost gets the first rank, and as we see that high interest rate, high subsidy not received, roads, electricity not connected to the orchards, pesticides not available, highway remains closed in the peak season, and MSPs are not available. These are all given by the rank as according to what we receive from our respondents. Here are a few suggestions, and there is a need to support farmer, particularly small farmers, through subsidies and loans. The loans shall be made available to the growers without asking for the loan guarantor for them. Further, the interest rate of subsidy scheme must be reduced to 12 to 5 to encourage the growers. Subsidy should be given on time to ensure that more and more people will adopt ultra high density scheme. Awareness campaign should be organized on panchayat halka level so that huge number of growers will know the benefit of ultra high density apple growers. Gala variety are profitable in ultra high density apple orchards. Therefore, more and more Gala varieties should be provided to the ultra high density apple growers. At last, in conclusion, I can say that ultra high density apple is a revolutionary step that can change the living standard of the people of the Jammu and Kashmir. Traditional apple varieties are facing huge market competition, and apples of Himachal and Iran. In view of this issue, high density apple variety can be the solution. It therefore helps the people of Jammu and Kashmir to earn a huge amount of money, which is not possible from old varieties. Government of India Government of Jammu and Kashmir plays a significant role to help the ultra-high density apple growers, but a lot of challenges have yet to be unsolved. For example, establishment cost is high, interest rate is high, highways closed during the peak season, minimum support price should be given to the apple growers so that they can earn good return. Here are the references. And thank you.
Checkup. I'm Sarvesh Patil. So motivation of psychometric checkup is nowadays a lot of people suffering from mental health related issues. Mental illness caused due to work pressure, family problems, and environmental pollution, and many more things are there. So to reduce this problem, we can use technology. Many technology are there to detect the mental health of a person. Machine learning is the latest technology on which we can predict the results. So we decided to find out solution on this issue. We have to help the people who are suffering from the difficult state of mind. We are providing proper detection of mental issue and also provide genuine solution to this new age problem. So the introduction is about depression can be occur in person of all the ages. It can be very risky and can lead to anxiety attacks, death after heart attack, and problems like blood pressure, hypertension, and diabetes. So therefore, it is very important to detect it and find causes of the same that can lead to appropriate treatment. The traditional method of mental health detection normally use face-to-face interviews, self-reporting, and consultation. However, traditional methods are typically labor-intensive and time-consuming. So, our previous studies have applied technologies such as wearable sensors and smartphone in healthcare and health detection. However, these technologies are typically used by individuals who have been diagnosed with mental illness and have been monitored over the period. So we have done quite a literature survey. We have come up with, we have go through different research paper and implementation papers in which they use machine learning. So all the different author use different technology such as MLP, support vector, machine decision tree, and they have their accuracy is something around 73 to 75%. So our problem statement is, as we all know, physical health and mental health plays very important role in human life. During the type of recruitment process of any organization, there should be a process of checking mental health of candidate. So for any company, it is very important to have number of candidate with good health, good mental health, so that the candidate can handle any complex project as well as workload easily. So we have proposed a system in which we are going to first collect the data, then we are going to pre-process it. Our data collection is based on DAS questionnaire. DAS questionnaire is a standard uh, which is used by doctors to evaluate the mental health of a patient. So after this data pre-processing is there, we have to pre-process the data. And then we are going to building a machine learning model by using different types of algorithms such as logistic regression, k-nearest neighbor, random forest, and decision tree. In last step, we are going to predict the person is mentally stable or not. So there are different algorithms like a logistic regression, a k-nearest neighbor, decision classifier, random forest. So the conclusion of our paper is various machine learning algorithms were used to determine the current state of mind of a person. Simultaneously, mental health verification was done. The different algorithm will are used as such as support vector, machine k-nearest neighbor, logistic regression, neo-bias, random forest, etc. This algorithm will be helpful to compare the accuracy, and the best performing algorithm can provide a better outcome. And knowing the state of mind of a person, we will come to know whether the person is in depression, anxiety, or actually fine. if person is under such conditions, then early stage detection will very helpful. It also helps in work stress triggered anxiety and mood swings, negative thoughts. This machine learning based application also gives prediction based on previous history of patient. So we have go through different these different research papers for. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was a very informative presentation.
Relationship between internalized homophobia, relationship satisfaction, and sexual satisfaction in LGBTQ community. My objective is to find out the relationship between internalized homophobia, relationship satisfaction, and sexual satisfaction, basically in the LGBTQ people. So my research question is, do there is a correlation between the sexual satisfaction and relationship satisfaction? And do there is a correlation of the internalized homophobia with relationship and sexual satisfaction? Operational definition. It's like sexual satisfaction is basically the degree or to which an individual is satisfied or happy with the sexual aspect of the relationship. And relationship satisfaction is basically that defining the overall level of positive effect experience in the relationship and extent to which an important needs are being met in the relationship. Internalized homophobia is a self-hatred that occurs as a result of being socially stigmatized person. The other researchers have done. Bronson's had done the research where it found that the internalized homophobia is inversely related to the relationship satisfaction. And Byers had done the research which shows that there is a sexual satisfaction has a complete changes when there is a change of the relationship satisfaction. Yacho in Chinese have done the results that on the gay population, which is the negative relationship between the internalized homophobia and relationship satisfaction. My variables may be independent variable internalized homophobia and relationship satisfaction, and dependent variables are in relationship satisfaction and sexual satisfaction. Hypothesis is there is a significant positive relationship between internalized homophobia and sexual satisfaction. There is negative correlation between internalized homophobia and sexual satisfaction. Research design. It's basically a quantitative research and correlational study between the internalized homophobia, relationship satisfaction, and sexual satisfaction. It is basically a purposive sampling method from the years age of the 20 years to 35 years age. Inclusion criteria should be that 20 to 35 years age, LGBT community, and should know the English and know how to use the Google Forms. And exclusion criteria was the opposite of inclusion criteria. Procedure was 118 people was collected for this. Purposive sampling was used. And informed consent, the questionnaire include the informed consent, demographics, and the measured that was presented in that Google form. After the test, the Google form, it was administered and scored was calculated and analyzed. I've collected the data of gender, age, marital status, geographical location, sexuality, and occupation. So gender mein it's 52.5% was male, 42.4% was female, and 5.1% was other. So there was different categories. It was in India, it was done with 19 states. And married, unmarried was included in this. Lesbians was 16.9%, gay was 22%, bisexual was 40%, transgender was 6.8%, and queer community was 13.6%. 26.3% was employed, 50.8% was unemployed, and 29.9% was self-employed. Data was analyzed through the correlation method, including the 118 participants. So data was analyzed, and it shows that there was a relationship between relationship satisfaction and sexual satisfaction in LGBTQ community, but there was no correlation between internalized homophobia and sexual satisfaction, and not even the internalized homophobia and relationship satisfaction in LGBTQ community. So the reasons can be other than that, that we have not considered the religion, the people where they're living, and religiousness, religions, and all. Conclusion was that there was no relationship between them. So the level of relationship satisfaction and sexual satisfaction was correlated, and the other papers was also says that there was a correlation between that. In India, there was very less studies doing that, but I have done the study. Implication is that the study can be used to the educational, clinical, and policy making settings. It can be recommended to educate those preparing for the professional careers as clinical sexuality educators, social workers, policymakers working with adults, particularly those with the LGBTQ population. Limitations was that it can be done with the literate people, not with illiterate people. Data was collected from all over the India, and the quantitative study was used, and so that the internalized homophobia, the feelings of internalized homophobia was not being addressed. The ethical consideration was particularly taken, consent was taken, privacy and confidentiality was maintained, and permission was taken before before to send the questionnaire. These were the references, and thank you.
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. Ma'am, I would request you to kindly post your email ID in the chat box so that if any queries are there, the participants can interact with you. So I'll call upon the next presenter. Simran Gambhir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, is your presentation ready?
Yes.
Kindly share, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Yes, please go ahead.
okay. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Simran Gambhir. The topic for my research is edutainment leading to sexual decision-making, a qualitative perspective amongst young couples. So when we look at the data of India especially, we can see that there are a lot of unwanted pregnancy and early pregnancies that we can see at a very young age in India. And 17% of people are getting pregnant in India, which are only youngsters, and specifically 14% of them were unplanned. And when we are talking about sexual intimacy, these are the major concerns that are brought up, like STDs, STIs, HIV, AIDS, and another infections. So when we are talking about sexual health, it is as vital as physical and cognitive health is, and also when the WHO tries to define sexual health, they don't talk about the absence of sexual health, but they talk about how sexual health can be maintained and can be looked upon in a very positive and respectful manner. In essence, they talk about how we can prevent these STIs by using contraceptive pills and another precautions. And most of the times when we are talking about sexual health, we somehow neglect the importance of emotional stability. So emotional stability is also a very major component when we are looking upon the topic of sexual health. Entertainment education is nothing but when we are trying to educate people about sexual health and the precautions that they should take care of through different medias. So one of the media for educating people is web series, or I can say the media as in total. Like we can go on radio, we can go on television, and especially these days, OTT platform is very much famous. And that is where we can call that it is education through entertainment. So when we are talking about this research particularly, we'll be taking into care Netflix as a medium of online subscription based program. Few researches have also been conducted, and in that we can say, like, one of the series on Netflix was 13 Reasons Why, in which we could observe that there were so much of impact on people that they started having suicidal thoughts, and some people actually went on to proceed with that. And other show is East Loss High. So they were also trying to educate people about sexual health. So there have been different and medias where they are trying to educate people about these components, and people do also get affected by it. And when we are talking about this theory, social cognitive theory, we can say that Bandura said that whatever we observe on television, people might not necessarily do it or observe it in our behavior, but they might model it if they are very much interested in it. And the first subject that comes into the picture is the motivation behind they're actually conducting or doing that particular behavior. The method that we used for this study was a qualitative investigation through phenomenological method of data collection. Sorry. 1 second. Yeah. So the participants that were taken into account for this particular research were young adults who were in a relationship, romantic relationship, particularly between the ages of 18 and 24, heterosexual unmarried couples, as these particular web series that have been selected for this research are mostly based on the population which is unmarried and are indulged in sexual intimacy. The procedure for the recruitment was that the participants were asked about their information, such as the demographic details, their status about whether they are married or unmarried, and whether they are in a long-term romantic relationship. The interview was scheduled with a semi-structured interviews were taken care of, and the whole procedure was somehow divided into 3 sessions. First session, they were informed about the procedure that will be taken care of. Second session mostly included the question that they might have, and the third session was the interview that was taken. And the interview was from about 30 to 45 minutes. So the results of the research, when I was trying to examine the results, there were 4 main themes that came across. One was the audience involvement. Under audience involvement, there were a few other criteria that the participants talked about when they are looking at the web series, and when they can finally find themselves in the connection with the character that they are watching. So first subheading is character identification. In character identification, it is like when an audience member is so connected with the person in the web series that they somehow try to do the same behavior or same sexual intimate things that they are doing on the screen. They would rather besides just watching it, they would like to enhance those particular sexual intimate scenes and would like to prefer doing the same with their partners. Visual identification is where they wanted to be like the character. One of the participants specifically mentioned that there was a scene that they watched on the web series where they wanted that the person who was shown, Massimo, the character, they said that the different sexual positions that he was trying to incorporate in his sexual intimacy, he also wanted to do the same. Transportation, where there were instances where they felt like that that the character should not do this. For example, in the web series Sex Education, they felt that Maeve shouldn't have done abortion without the consent of Jackson. She should also take into consideration that the baby is not only hers but also of the boy, that is Jackson there. And the other subpart is character relatability. There were a lot of instances where they could find the characteristics of themselves and the character which was more relatable, and somehow that was one of the major aspects that made them incorporate the same thing in their real lives. Behaviors adopted and learned. Some of the things that the participants that mentioned that when they used to watch web series, they got to know about different sorts of contraceptive pills that they could take, or other sorts of protection techniques that they could use besides coitus interruptus. They try to employ them all in their actual life. Another theme that came up was decision making. And decision making, male decision making and female decision making were different, as in like males were most probably indulged in deciding whether the condom or the contraceptive pills should be bought by them or not. And females decision making was most probably, they said that the childbearing is mostly done by the female, so the decision making should also rely on them. So if they want to use the protection, they will ask the female whether they are comfortable in using the contraceptive pills or not, or whether they should use condoms or not. The last is information seeking. So there were different platforms or different source of information seeking areas where they could go and search for it. For example, Google, they used to go on Google and search for different websites where they could find the information regarding all the contraceptives and the protections that they could use. And most of the times they specifically said that they learned about all these things from their friends and in very rare cases, their parents. School, pornography, Instagram, and OTT platform were some of the other sources that they took into consideration. Concluding the research, so while talking about the data that has been indicated here, there we could say that there are different areas like character identification, visual identification, transportation, that we can say is having an impact on young couples. These are the parameters that we can take care of. And most of the times the participants mentioned that more sympathetic a character is, the more they could relate with them. And also the decision making, when we say, it is most probably the females in the relationship who were taking care of the protection, contraception, and another childbearing if they were to get pregnant. And 2 out of the 10 couples mentioned about the unwanted pregnancy. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a wonderful presentation.
I am working as an assistant professor in the Department of Industrial Engineering at Sakarya University. Today I will present you a study that I made with my student Ceren Tırtıl. The main purpose in a vehicle routing problem is to do optimum vehicle routing to minimize the number of vehicles to be used, the distance to be traveled, and the time to be spent by providing all constraints in the mathematical model specified. Although this is the main purpose, another goal intended to be attained is to enhance customer satisfaction. In this study, the logistic company will try to enhance customer satisfaction by also taking the just-in-time production philosophy of the automotive company it serves into account and considering such criteria as no disruption in the production of the customer and it's operating with the minimum inventory while performing the vehicle routing, which will provide the minimum cost for it. According to the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, supply chain management encompasses the planning and management of all activities involved in sourcing and procurement, conversion, and all logistic management activities. Importantly, it also includes coordination and collaboration with channel partners, which can be suppliers, intermediaries, third-party service providers, and customers. In essence, supply chain management integrates supply and demand management within the across companies. The vehicle routing problem is the problem of determining a set of routes that visit a set of customers at minimum distance, where each route satisfies a capacity constraints. This problem is interesting both from theoretical and the practical points of view. In fact, finding an optimal solution is really challenging, and this problem is solved daily by companies worldwide. Vehicle routing problems have many fields of application in both the production sector and the service sector, such as transportation and logistical practices, distribution and pickup problems, determination of school bus routes, waste collection, intra-depot material pickup, newspaper, mail distribution problems, and implant transportation, etc. The supplier network of an automotive factory operating in Ankara, Turkey, was examined in this study. The company has 52 suppliers in the country, and the diversity of materials pickup from the suppliers is very high. The supply system has already been controlled by the relevant supplying company, and since this leads to incomplete and incorrect returns to the company works with irregular planning with losses. This study aims to determine the optimum vehicle routing to design a new system whereby cost and problems will be minimized in agreement with the just-in-time production philosophy by taking the control of the supply system from the supplying companies and making an agreement with an appropriate logistic company. The company has 52 suppliers in various regions of Turkey, and although these suppliers are predominantly located in the Marmara region, the routing problem will be carried out only for the suppliers in Bursa, another village, another city, since a significant amount of the suppliers are in Bursa and demands for pallets are very high in the Bursa district. There are 19 suppliers in Bursa in total. In order for production not to be disrupted in the automotive company, so as to carry out production just in time, and in order not to keep much inventory, the logistic company should visit the suppliers at an appropriate frequency and bringing an appropriate amount of materials to the automotive company. In order for the vehicles of the logistic company to meet these criteria, they should visit the suppliers on a specific route. Such an approach is called a milk run approach. In this application, the daily volumes of the products to be picked up from the suppliers in Bursa are calculated, and the routes of the vehicles, the hours at which they enter and depart from each supplier, and when the materials will reach the automotive company are determined. In this study, the daily run was calculated both manually and by means of GAMS program, and the performance results of both calculations were compared. In the automotive sector, transportation is generally carried out by using plastic boxes and pallets. The pallets mentioned in this applications are standard pallets which measure 120 centimeters by 18 centimeters. The final weight of the pallet was calculated as 100 centimeters, as the pallets which be covered in order to be stocked one top of the other. The amounts of pallets for the amounts of daily materials required to be picked up from the suppliers in order for production to operate with no inventory are provided in table. As seen in table, it is required to pick up 6 pallets, yes, of materials from supplier to this 45 pallets of materials from supplier 3 and 22 pallets of materials from supplier 4 every day. The use of third trucks in transportation, as their volume is greater than that of trucks. Third trucks are more advantageous in terms of the cost of use than trucks, while trucks are more advantageous in terms of the initial investment cost. For this reason, and in terms of providing flexibility according to the amounts of pallets to be picked up, both third trucks and trucks will be used in this application. The vehicle fleet comprises 9 vehicles in total. In this case, according to the pallet sizes to be used, the pallet capacity of a third truck is 68 pieces, whereas the capacity of truck is 36 pieces. The distances of all suppliers to the automotive company and to each other were calculated. Accordingly, the routes found as a result of the manual solution of the problem are presented in table. Vehicles, suppliers, and distance. Assuming that the logistic company which provide renting the vehicles it would use in order to avoid such expenses as the maintenance, repair, traffic insurance, and cask insurance of the vehicles, it was accepted that the monthly renting cost of a third truck was 20,000 Turkish liras, while the monthly renting cost of a truck was 8,000 Turkish liras, that the salary of the driver was 2,500 Turkish liras month for both of them, that travel allowance cost of a driver was 150 Turkish liras day, and that the diesel fuel price was 1.75 kilometer for a third truck and 1.4 Turkish liras kilometer for a truck. The cost of the routes were drawn up according to this logistical cost and are shown in table. Total cost of these routes is this 17,600,000 approximately Turkish liras. The solution of the problem by means of the GAMS program, one of the most employed methods when solving vehicle routing problems is linear programming. The below mentioned indices, parameters, and constraints were used in the mathematical model where it was aimed to minimize the distance traveled. We are used a lot of criteria, a lot of parameters and constraints. You can show indices, variables, parameters, and constraints. The model state was solved with the GAMS program by utilizing the data used for the manual solution, and the routes shown in table were found. The capacities of use for the vehicles are also given in table. Each vehicle will start its route from the automotive company indicated as supplier 1 and its route by uploading its materials in the automotive company. Again, supplier 1 in the GAMS program as in the manual solution. Accordingly, the route of vehicle 1 is the automotive company, supplier 8, supplier 5, supplier 3, and finally the automotive company respectively. Vehicle 1 travels 969 kilometers throughout the route. In the routing study prepared according to the GAMS program, it is enough to use 7 vehicles from the fleet of 9 vehicles. The total distance traveled is 6,882 kilometers, and the total duration is 88 hours. According to this routing solution, only vehicle 7 is a truck, while the others are third trucks. The capacities used by the third trucks are over 85%, and the capacity used by the truck is 44%. The cost of the routes calculated again in line with the same logistical cost items were found and are shown in table. And total cost you can show. The cost and durations of the vehicles routes and the amounts of the distance traveled were calculated both manually and by means of the GAMS program through the Migran application. A comparison of the routes obtained as a result of the solutions according to the criteria of cost, time, and distance likely to be specified at the performance criteria for vehicle routing is provided in table. According to the table, when the total cost, distances, and durations of the roads are taken into consideration, it is seen that the road obtained with the GAMS program is more advantageous in terms of cost, duration, and distance than the route obtained as a result of the manual solutions. And in the study, it was intended to determine the optimum vehicle routes by implementing the Migran method, one of the vehicle routing techniques. For an automotive company, vehicle routing was performed both manually and with the GAMS program by building a mathematical model. The vehicle routes found in both ways were compared on the basis of cost, duration, and the distance traveled. In the continuation of the study, new vehicle routes may be determined heuristically by employing the heuristic techniques of genetic algorithm and or particle swarm optimization. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation.
We are the students of the aerospace department, IMT University Meerut, and we are here to deliver a small presentation on the research paper that we made on the RC plane, that is Hindustan Aeronautics Limited Tejas. So first of all, I will explain about the abstract, that is that HAL Tejas MK1 is the smallest and the lightest aircraft in its class, like it is dimensionally smallest, which is coupled with extensive use of composite structure to make aircrafts lighter. So similar to this RC plane of this Tejas is a radio-controlled aircraft that is controlled remotely by an operator on the ground using a handheld radio transmitter, by which transmitter continuously communicates with the receiver within a craft that sends signals to servo motors. RC plane are used to do basically experiments like weather forecasting, aerodynamic modeling, and testing. So the main purpose is to do the aerodynamic modeling and testing, and the purpose of the research paper is to design an RC aircraft model. So basically this plane is created to encourage all those enthusiastic students who are interested to create the RC planes to get an overview of construction of miniature flying aircrafts. So I will move further on the introduction. Basically, RC planes are remote controlled airplanes that is controlled from the ground. These are manually controlled from the ground, and these are made easily from the less sophisticated materials, even one can easily make in the comfort of your home. The model is basically a real aircraft which flies and operates by the same principles as its full-scale counterpart. The only difference is of size and weight. These are not slow vehicles, nor they can be flown in the normal backyard. They require space too. So basically, there are the many types of RC planes like trainer plane, glider, sports plane, aerobatic plane, scale plane, float plane. R basically is trainer plane. The aim of this project is to build and design RC plane Tejas. We settle the motor along the propeller on the back of the fuselage pad of the airplane so that it pushes the plane to move in the forward direction. We settle the servo motors on the mid of the wings and flaps, that is known as horizontal stabilizers, so that it stabilizes the pitch and rolling motion. Next is basically the four primary controllers of the RC plane. First is throttle. Here's the picture of the throttle. As you can see, the main role of this throttle is to control the engine speed and hence how fast or slow the propeller spins. In turn, this changes the amount of thrust produced. Next is elevators. The elevators are the hinged section of the tailplane or horizontal stabilizer at the very rear of the airplane, and their single most important control surface that directly affects the plane's airspeed. As you can see in this picture, that there's a down elevator that in the down elevator the nose becomes down of the airplane, and up in the up elevator the nose becomes up of the airplane. Elevators are also known as the horizontal stabilizers. And the next primary controllers is our ailerons. Ailerons work by changing the amount of lift generation over the wing. As an aileron moves upwards, so it disrupts the smooth airflow over the wing surface, and so lift is reduced slightly on the wing. Here in this picture, like there's a left aileron, which is the right one up, cause a roll to the right, and the left one is the right one down, causes a roll to the left. The main role of the ailerons is to control the rolling motion of an aircraft. Next is retracts. Retracts are generally used in the large RC planes, particularly scale models where the real airplane has retractable undercarriage. They can be operated mechanically by a servo motor. Like here in this picture, as you can see, the picture on the ground and in the air. Further, these are the components. I want to explain about the components that basically are used in the original Hindustan Aeronautics Limited Tejas Mk1. That is first batteries. In the RC plane, they use 11.1 volt of battery, 3000 mAh power battery, and the type of the battery is basically lithium polymer. Here is the picture that you can see. It's the battery of the lithium polymer battery. Now, the second component that is used, that is propeller. The trike propeller are used in the RC plane. Propeller size is basically 5.1 by 5.2. The material that is used in the propeller is the polycarbonate, which is the high quality propeller used in the HAL Tejas. Note that the trike propeller have the greater aerodynamic efficiency or the good lifting capacity. Now, the next component is the brushless motor. In the RC plane, they use 220 kilovolt high efficiency motor. And the N45 is such magnet for the long life, as it's highly sustainable and is highly efficient. The next component is used as the servo motors. In the RC plane, they use the SG90 continuous rotation 360-degree servo motor. It has operating voltage above 3.0 volt to 7.2 volts. The stalling torque is basically 4.8 volt. There's also the wire descriptions that they used in the servo motors. Like for the red wire is for the positive, brown wire is used to signify the negative sign, and the orange is used to give the signals. Now, next a component that used is ESC, that is electronic speed controller. In the HAL Tejas, the ESC that is used is CMOC 38 BLDC ESC, which is specially made for the quadcopters and the multi-rotors. It consumes the current up to 30 ampere. Now, next is receiver. In the RC plane, BSC6 receiver is used, which has the power up to 4.4 to 8.4 volt. Note that it is easy to bind and very fast link up, quick and extremely stable performance, or it highly uses in the RC plane. And at the end, the transmitter is used.
Good afternoon. I, Tishu Kumar, I co-author of Prakti Singla's research paper of RC plane of HL Tejas. I explain about HL Tejas Mk1. The HL Tejas Mk1 program, which began in 1980 to replace India's aging MiG-21 fighter, but later became the part of General Fleet Modernization Program. In 2003, the LCA was officially named as LCA Tejas. The project definition phase was commenced in October 1986, and the design of HL Tejas was finalized in 1990. The wind tunnel testing and computational fluid dynamics LCA Tejas Mk1 is a light combat aircraft. Computational fluid dynamics LCA Tejas Mk1 is a lightweight combat aircraft, which has been associated with project of HAL. It has a fight refueling IFR process which enhances range during mission undertaken. IFR capability has been proven for day and night operations. Altoids has an ESA radar, electronically scanned array radar, which probability of interception. So as per our RC prospects, we have made HL Tejas as RC type, which have 4 primary controllers. It has mainly successfully made in order to check capability like that of actual Tejas, and also about its aerodynamic modeling and testing like lift and drag forces, about its swept angle, angle of attack, swept wing, and other parameters too. Now, RC model, our RC model material is sunpad sheet, thermocol sheet, sandpaper, color tapes, super glue gun, cycle spokes, tri-propellers, and 2200 kV motor, brushless motor, batteries, wires and cables, and ESC, electronic speed controllers. Now, calculations of RC planes HL Tejas. Now first, original HL Tejas length is 13.2 meter and RC plane Tejas 0.602 meter. Now wingspan 8.2 meter and RC plane Tejas 0.602 meter. Now height is original HL Tejas 4.4 meter and RC plane Tejas 0.089 meters. Now wing area 38.4 meters square and RC plane Tejas wing area is 23.4 meters square. Now empty weight is 6,560 kilograms and RC plane Tejas 520 grams. Gross weight is 9,800 kilogram and RC plane Tejas 754 grams. Now maximum speed Mach 1.6. Now RC plane Tejas subsonic volume object Mach number 0.3. Now the range is 1850 kilometers and RC plane Tejas is 2 kilometers. Wing loading is 255.2 kilograms and 32.7 grams. This is the RC plane Tejas. Thrust and weight is 0.94 and RC plane Tejas thrust is 0.69. Aspect ratio is 1.75 and RC plane Tejas aspect ratio is 0.015. Okay, thank you.
So, ma'am, here's basically I want to explain about that the formulas that we used in the wingspan is that is S is equals to B into C, where the B is C is basically the chord length. And the formula that we used in finding the maximum speed, that is the volume of object upon the volume of speed. Range that we used for finding out the RC plane of Tejas, that is tan theta into CL by CD. Here the CL is the lift coefficient, and the CD is drag coefficient. The formula that we used for the wing loading, that is W by S, where where the W is basically the weight of the RC plane that we make, and S is the surface area that it takes. Next is thrust by weight ratio, the formula that is used, and for the aspect ratio, the formula that we used is B square by C. B is here the wingspan, and C is basically the chord length. And here are the pictures that we have made the RC plane. It's basically the working RC plane that we have made. And I just want to explain about the research methodology, that how we make the RC plane. So firstly, we take out templates of our RC plane. Then we join the template paths with each other in the rows and columns. Then just put your template on the sunpad sheet or whatever the sheet that you want to make it off, and cut the designs of all the templates. Then after cutting off all the parts, start sanding on the edge of thermocol part, that is fuselage and nose, so that the edge becomes smooth and comes in the shape. Now cover all of your parts with colored tapes so as to give it strength and endurance and flexibility to the plane. Now just join the parts when taping is done. For support to the nose section, put ice cream sticks on both sides of it with help of the glue stick. Now put electronics, firstly brushless motor, and then after calculating center of gravity, just calculate the CG, just fixed other electronic equipments like servo motors with help of the wires and cables, LiPo battery, propeller, and ESC, that is electronic speed controller. Then just check your RC configuration in which electronic parts are working well. Now, I just want to explain the conclusion that RC planes becomes the new way to do and to observe things practically. It becomes a common feature in many applications. In this paper, this design, parameters, and performance research of the radio control aircraft have been reviewed by the authors. It was observed that by optimizing the design parameters, performance of the radio control aircraft can be enhanced. So here are the references, and thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so up till now, we heard all kind of papers regarding implementation of all kind of technologies in the research. I really enjoyed the presentation. I think they were excellent. But what I will do, I will go to the other side of the research, and I will try to present to you a new technology that I developed in order to discover association rules in a much faster and more, in my opinion, straightforward manner. A full paper will be published in the data mining journal, but in this conference, I just want to share with you some ideas that already been implemented into some products. I hope you're gonna like it. I hope that the proceedings of this conference will be published soon, so you also can take a look at what is happening. So the basic idea of association rules is that, I don't know why you have all this noise. The problem with association rules today is that the complexity of finding association rule is 2 to the m, where m is the number of columns or variables in a database. So if you have a very large database, then practically it is impossible to find the association rules. And I will propose a solution that will take a square root of this complexity. The beauty, in my opinion, of this approach is that it is very simple, straightforward, and very easy to implement. So I hope you're gonna like it as much as I do. Before I go into the details, in case you guys are not familiar with the concept of association rules, so let me just review it really quickly, some concept and some definitions. First of all, we are dealing with tables. A table is, you know, a two-dimensional array of rows and columns. Each cell, each entry in the table can be anything. For the simplicity of this presentation, I will assume zeros and ones, so you can get an idea of how this is done. Another important definition is a concept called item set. Item set is a collection of items. In other words, it's a collection of variables that their values is larger than 0. In other words, in our case, it's going to be 1. Based on the concept of item set, or K item set, as we call, where K is the number of items in the item set, we can define what is called the support, which we can either compute as a nominal number, which means how many times a particular variable appears in the data set, or we can do it proportionally, which means the number of times the entry appears in the data set divided by the number of total possible cases. Based on this definition, we can define what is called the confidence of a rule, which is the probability that X, if you know X, what is the probability that Y will be there also, and it's defined as a function of the support. I'll give you an example so you will understand it very quickly. And you know, the simple idea is very simple. The relationship among item sets is actually what we call the association rules. And basically what we do, we give to each association some kind of a confidence level or confidence value. And what it does, it indicates the probability that such a relation exists. Based on that, you can, make a lot of data mining decisions about the relationship between two items in the store, in the supermarket, or whatever you want to design. It's very nice, and you can do it very easily. Basically, the idea is that the way we compute today association rules is we take columns and we compare the two columns. For example, if you have two columns, then you go to each row and you see if you have one here and one here. If it's so, you accumulate it, and based on that, you compute the support, and based on that, you compute the confidence, and so on and so forth. And then you have to do all the permutation of two columns, and then you do the permutation of 3 columns and 4 columns until you get to the point where there are no more permutation exists. This is very nice, but it takes 2 to the m time to do that, which means in practical use, it is impossible. So what we want to do is I want to take you to another approach, which in my opinion is very simple, and I hope you will appreciate it. So I call this approach a horizontal approach, and the reason for that is that I work, instead of working in columns, I work in rows. And basically, what I want to do is to take the original table, which I call it T, and somehow to convert it into a new table, which I think I call it C, and that new table will be much smaller. It will have only 2 columns. The first column will have the combination or the arrangement of the zeros and ones in the original database, and the second column will count the number of times this arrangement occurs in the database, okay? So based on that, I actually create a new table, which in my opinion, this is gonna be a good information table, and based on this table, I can find practically anything I want about the relationship on this table, on this original table. So how this is done, the algorithm is very simple. Basically, you go each row and independently, you do the following thing. You find the location where you have a non-zero values in a particular line or record. Now I say non-zero because in practical use, it can be anything. It can be a real number, it can be a word, it can be alphanumeric value, anything we want, but for simplicity, I use 0 and 1 in the example, so you can take it anywhere you want. So the first thing I do, I go through a row and I see where I have a non-zero values. If I have a non-zero values, I dump them into another program, which compute all the subsets, all the permutations of the original string, excluding zeros, which means it's not really interesting. And I'll give you an example exactly what I mean. When I find all the permutations, all the combinations, I take those combinations into the table C and update the counters accordingly, okay? And the end of the process, each row in this new table C represent a certain item set, and each counter really provides me a support. So if I have the item set and I have the support, I can easily compute the confidence of a rule. So in the next 2-3 minutes that I have, I'll show you an example and hopefully you will see how easy it is. So for example, in this table, I have 8 rows and 4 columns, 4 variables, and I have ones everywhere just to kind of, in case you're not familiar with association rules, you can assume there are 8 people who are going to a supermarket. There are 4 items you can buy. The first guy buys item number 1, item number 3. The second one buys only item number 2, and so on and so forth. What I want to do, I want to find out if a person buys an item X, he will also buy item Y, or any other combination that you can think of. Okay, that's basically the idea of an association rules that was first published in 1902 by Agrawal. So I think it's a cute idea. We just, I think, couldn't continue because of the complexity of the time. So what I do, I look at the first row and I see, what do I see? I go to the first line, okay, and I see that I have 2 ones, okay? So what I do, I take these 2 ones and I put them in a different set, which means in my view, column number 1 and column number 3 have 1. So what I do, I dump the zeros for computing purposes, and I get this little table here. And based on that, I find all the permutation. All the permutation means, I hope you can see that, is that I can have in column 1 and 3, I can have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. Okay, 0, 0 is not interesting. Okay, so basically what I'm left is this. So I found 3 different permutations. Now I'm going back to the original table and I put the zeros in the proper places. And now I have 3 item sets that can be legitimate candidate for creating association rules. Based on that, I take these 3 item sets and I add them to the table I call C. So I have an item set 0, 0, 1, 0 has a count of 1, 1, 0, 0, 0 has a count of 1, and 1, 0, 1, 0 has a count of 1. Basically, I took all the permutations and I dumped them and I added the count. And I go and I repeat the same process for the 8 columns, and I got finally this table here. This table, which I call it table C, I don't remember why, but it has all the information I want in order to create association. For example, I can go there and I see which item in the original table is the largest support. Okay, so I see that, for example, in my supermarket, 5 people bought item number 1. And if you go to the table, you'll see exactly that. Or I can say, okay, which pair of items has the highest support? And I see that this guy. And based on this, I say, okay, you know something, let me see if I can compute the rules, the confidence of these particular combinations. Or I can go and look at the table, and from that table I can find anything I want, all the information I want regarding the original table. So after this table is completed, for example, I'm taking like I said, you can check what is the largest support, what's the largest item set, how many rules you can generate, all kind of information you can find based on this table C. For example, what I did, I said, okay, if I know that this guy actually is the only case in this example that you can generate some rules. So what I did, generated these two rules. I said, if the guy buys item number 1, he has to buy item number 3. The confidence or the probability that that will happen will be 0.6. Now, if you look at the original table, you will see that only in 3 times out of the 5, when a guy bought item number 1, he also bought item number 3, which is okay. On the other hand, if you look at the reverse of this rule, which means when the guy buy item number 3, what is the probability that he will buy also item number 1? We get the confidence of 1. And this is extremely nice because now I have some kind of an association that actually I learned something that says that each time a person will come to a supermarket and buys item number 3, he will also buy item number 1. And from the practical point of view, we can say that maybe item 1 and item 3 should be next to each other in the supermarket, and all kind of things that people can decide based on these results. So, you know, I went very quickly on that, but basically what the important thing is that we create, based on the original table, we can create another table. I call it an informative table. I call it C, in which we have all the information needed for me to analyze the data. And based on that, create all the association rules that I can think of. And the beauty of this thing is that I can do it in a time which is a square root of the classical time that was available up till now in the market. I think this is it. So thank you very much.